Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Doug Ford is absolutely correct. It is too dangerous to allow border blockades to continue. Border blockades. Thus, he is forced to impose a state of emergency, which provides police with additional powers and allows for an increase of fines for those who block important thoroughfares. Now, let me explain why it's too dangerous to allow border blockades to continue. By dangerous, I mean dangerous to the economy of Ontario, dangerous for the livelihoods of tens of thousands of Ontarians. Now, you know that we are already seeing some auto plants either shut down completely or slow down production because vital parts cannot make it across the border. Already, this is happening. And this, by the way, holds true for both sides of the border, and this is what's key. Tens of millions of dollars worth of auto parts cross the U.S.-Canadian border every single day, much of it through the Ambassador Bridge. Parts manufactured in Canada are shipped to the United States. Parts manufactured in the United States are shipped to Canada. The auto industries of both countries are firmly linked. They cannot exist without each other, at least not today. And this is what's key. And that's the danger, all right? And please listen carefully here. There's a great deal at stake here. If this blockade continues and the U.S. auto industry is seriously affected, you can be certain, excuse me, that the Americans will have a much closer look at the trade agreements as it applies to auto industry and make a decision whether they can continue to allow a situation which provides a foreign power, that would be Canada, control over one of their major industries, the auto industry. Think of it. We've got to be realistic here, folks. We've got to be realistic. The auto industry is an employer of tens of thousands, one way or the other, in the province of Ontario alone. It is a vital cog of the economy of this province. It's a vital cog for the economy of all of Canada. We cannot take a risk to place it in jeopardy. And it is in jeopardy as long as these border blockades continue. Already, and you know this, there is a growing Buy American movement in the United States led by President Biden. Americans at every level are being encouraged, and in some cases financially aided to make the product in the United States rather than buy it from a foreign power. This is a very powerful movement, and already the Canadian government has expressed some concern over this as it relates to other industries. So already the pressure is on in the United States, Buy America. So if they realize that the auto industry, which is a major industry in the United States, huge industry, employs tens of thousands of people, if they realize that their industry is at risk thanks to a few truckers in Canada, then the danger is that they will say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. We can make these parts in this country. It may take us a little while, but we're Americans. We can do it, and we will do it because we cannot place our auto industry at risk at the whim of a few, angry Canadian truckers. And that's what's happening now, because the layoffs have already started in the United States as well, and they're mad as hell. The governor of Michigan, who is no friend of ours to begin with, has already, been very, very vociferous in its appeal to the federal government here in Canada. Put a stop to this. It's affecting our industry here in Michigan. It's affecting the auto industry everywhere in the United States. It can't continue. That's the danger. Can you imagine what would happen if the Americans decide, you know what? We're going to make those auto parts. Now, it would go against some trade agreements. Do you think the Americans care about that? Not in your life. Not the Americans today. And if they decide, you know what, this is crazy. I mean, we're losing jobs here in the United States because of a few Canadian truckers. What the hell with that? We'll make this stuff here. Can you imagine what would happen to the economy if we stop making auto parts here? This would be economic chaos in this province. So Doug Ford had no choice. And I mean, there's no question that international borders are the responsibility of the federal government. That would be Justin Trudeau. It's also very clear that he's too brainless and too gutless to do anything about it. Thus, Doug Ford was forced into taking action. Now, I think that there is some misunderstanding. I see some comments today on Facebook, for example, saying, well, why didn't Doug Ford move in here in Ottawa, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Hey, look, you got to understand the role of politicians and the police. Policing is a policing job. You cannot have political interference. Doug Ford could not have come here to Ottawa and ordered the police to do this, that, or the other thing. This was a decision by the police. Now, the city of Ottawa also bears some responsibility because the city of Ottawa has the power to increase the fines. And the city of Ottawa also had the power, had they chosen, to seek an injunction against the horn blowing, which, by the way, was done by what? A 21-year-old private citizen rather than the city. So Doug Ford has no role in this. And even when it comes to the special powers, there is no way that Doug Ford can tell the police, you've got to do this. What Doug Ford says was that with the emergency powers, this gives police more power. But it is still up to the police to enforce the law. The province, the politician, creates the law. The police enforce the law. But politicians cannot be instructing police on how to do their job. That I think is widely misunderstood. That's what's happening on the border. Now, I know, and I see some of you people are mad at Doug Ford. Oh, you may, and I understand that because I think there's a total lack of understanding of the role here. Look, Justin Trudeau should have taken care of this a long time ago. He should have imposed some sort of special power with the border guards who he controls, etc. But he's chosen not to do that. Doug Ford Doug Ford he's in charge of the province of Ontario. One of the major employers in this province is the auto industry. The auto industry is being threatened, not just by what's happening in this country, but what's happening in the United States. That's the great danger. I know that many of you are very sympathetic to the truckers, and I understand that. But you can be as sympathetic as you want, but there are some lines over which you cannot cross. You cannot place the economy of an entire province or an entire country on a few disgruntled truckers. You may think that the truckers have every reason to be disgruntled in the world, and maybe they do. But there has to be some limit. You can't allow them to risk the livelihoods of tens of thousands of people. There is a line over which you cannot allow them to take. And surely you must agree with that. Surely you must, okay? Be mad at Doug Ford. What do you expect Doug Ford to do? Federal government's not doing anything. You expect him just to sit there and do nothing? Allow this to go on? Allow thousands of jobs to be thrown into the dumper? To risk the entire economy? Do you expect him to do that? And let me ask you this. Those people who are still mad at Doug Ford, oh, he shouldn't have done this and so forth. Let me ask you point blank, okay? And you got to be honest with me and you got to be honest with yourself. Are you prepared to lose your job? Are you prepared to lose your livelihood in support of the truckers? Look, the truckers, picket Queen's Park, picket Parliament Hill, you're doing that. I think you should go home, but, okay, pick it wherever you want. But you cannot block international borders and risk the livelihood, the economy of an entire province. I'm sorry, you can't. Can't allow it. So I ask you again, how far are you prepared to carry your support? Are you prepared to lose your job, your livelihood? Because I want to tell you, if this continues, there are going to be a lot of your friends, a lot of your relatives, a lot of your neighbors who are going to lose their jobs. Are you prepared to give up your job? That's really what's key. It's all very well to say, oh, well, yeah, but wait a minute. Supposing this was your job, what then? John, any response so far? What are people saying?
Yes, of course. All right. I want you to keep in mind, Lowell, that some of this goes back to about 10 minutes ago when you first started talking. So I read it kind of in that chronological order for you. And we invite your phone calls too, by the way, 613-413-2217 if you want to step out from behind the keyboard. We'd love to get a call from you. Robert says Ford is toast on a snowmobile.
Why? Okay, let me just address that. Okay. What? So he should do nothing then? And risk the economy of the entire province? Are you out of your freaking mind? What's the matter with you? How can you say, what's the man's name that wrote this?
Pardon me for just a second. That was Robert.
Robert, are you prepared to lose your job? Oh, you're only prepared to lose other people's jobs. Oh, I see. Okay, I understand. Go ahead, John.
A text at 613-413-2217. Doug Ford acted like a real leader. Justin Trudeau was the one to deal with this. Thank you, Doug Ford.
This is very true. I mean, Justin Trudeau refused to do anything, which he should have. It's his responsibility, the border. So he has forced Doug Ford to do this. In other words, Trudeau, as usual, has slithered away from his duty. And Doug Ford now he's the nasty guy. He's got to do this. Go ahead, please, John.
Bob says, goodbye, Doug. Dean says, for 2 years, even before the vaccines, it was okay for unvaccinated truckers to cross the border. Then, all of a sudden, Justin decides this is not allowed. I can see the truckers' frustration, but I'm not happy, about them blocking bridges right now. I hope this gets resolved without anyone getting hurt.
Well, excuse me. Can I just respond? I appreciate that. But people have already been hurt. There have been, from what I understand, several thousand layoffs in the auto industry already in Canada, and a like amount in the United States. The United States is really cheesed off. Michigan is just beside itself with this. Here is what's her name, Gretchen. She's involved with Line 5 already. She doesn't like Canada to begin with. And now she sees her industry. I mean, let's face it, the auto industry, particularly in Detroit, is a fairly major industry, right? And she's seeing her constituents losing their jobs because of a few angry Canadian truckers. Surely you must see her point of view. Go ahead, please.
Lisa says Ford always seems to look like poo for doing what Trudeau can't or won't, and yet Trudeau comes out smelling like roses. Mike says they all blame Doug Ford for everything. Peter says Trudeau always gets someone else to do his dirty work.
Very true. Very true.
Another text at 613-413-2217. I'm way less concerned about auto parts than I am over my fresh produce from the States. Move aside, guys. I'm not prepared to support them blocking the borders. Let me see. Valda says, I worry that this will spark violence. I sure hope not. Carrie says, Trudeau is speaking shortly. I will be glued to my TV. Sean says, we're pretty accustomed to the auto industry shutting down. I'm in it, he says. Hold the line. The industry being shut down by the government was acceptable. If this finally forces the end of mandates, I feel that's a win. That's from someone who works in the auto industry.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what happens if you just lose your job permanently? What happens? You got to use your head here. I understand the sentiment, but you got to think. Are the Americans going to put up with a system that places their auto industry at risk?
Not anymore.
And they can do it themselves. That's the problem. Yeah. You got to wake up out there. You got to be realistic. Got to get your head out of the sand. Leave that to Trudeau. He's very good at it. But you got to realize, wait a minute. Think of the Americans. here they are, as we say. I keep repeating, a few Canadians truckers who are really upset, maybe legitimately so, but you're affecting American jobs. And let's be honest, if the Americans decide that they're going to make all of these parts, they will, and they can. Go ahead, please.
Yep, I do a lot of work in the States, as you know, and the attitude there is it's me or you.
Absolutely,
there's no
absolutely.
there's no in between. A suggestion on Twitch from Satan's Playmate. She says the government will bail out the auto industry once again. Raleigh says Trudeau's own arrogance and refusal to even speak with protesters while meeting other groups is the sole reason this has gotten to this point. It all falls on Trudeau's shoulders, but the damage falls down on everyone beneath him. Trudeau will not lose a dime because of his incompetence. Todd says, we have been losing these jobs before COVID. What I understand, the parts are not being supplied by overseas. All right,
No, no.
Kathy said,
Let me just go through that again, okay?
Yep.
I'm unclear as to the total, but someone says as many as $700 million worth of auto parts cross the border between Canada and the United States every single day. We make auto parts in Canada that are shipped to the United States. The United States makes auto parts that are shipped to Canada. The two industries are linked very, very closely, as you can see. One industry, the way it's set up now, cannot exist without the other. The Americans need the Canadian parts. The Canadians need the American parts. But if the Canadian parts can't get down to the United States because of blockades, then the Americans are going to say, listen, if we can't get them from Canada, we'll make these damn things ourselves. And that's curtains for the auto industry in this province. You may not care. You may care more about fruit. But I'm going to tell you, if we don't have an auto industry, I don't know where the hell you're going to get the money to buy a damn grapefruit. Go ahead, John, please.
A text at 613-413-2217. Did Doug Ford pay you to be his apologist? Lowell,
This is, I mean, this is so ridiculous. Did Doug Ford? No, he didn't. No, not today. Maybe I'll get some money tomorrow. Dumbhead. Go ahead, please.
Someone else texted in to say the parts from overseas are electronics. We produce mechanical parts here.
That's right.
Yep. Tina Marie is on Twitch. She says, I have family in Windsor who work in Detroit in the auto industry, and they are sitting at home waiting for this blockade to be over with.
Thank you. There's what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Kathy says all the government needs to do is drop all mandates Canada-wide. Okay. Barbara says, agree with you,
Yeah,
Lowell.
but wait a minute. Hold it. I mean, Doug Ford can't force that. Doug Ford has the responsibility to look after as best he can the economy of the province of Ontario and jobs. And in this case, he's got to do whatever he can do. He can't move in himself. He can't tell police to do this. What he has done is give police more power to move in on this. And by the way, he's not alone. The mayor of Windsor has a court injunction, or I'm not sure if it's been granted yet, but it's in the process. And as a consequence, one lane of the Ambassador Bridge, the last time I checked, had been opened. So, I mean, folks, look, no matter where you stand on Doug Ford or Lowell Green or anything else, the bridge has got to be open. We can't stop trans-border trade. We can't. I have to take a break here from my good friends at Shields, and I must tell you that we make a lot of appliances in Canada, but a lot of the appliances that you buy are made in the United States, and some of the appliances that we make here are bought in the United States as well. So it's not just auto parts. I mean, we're talking, and the woman who said about it's a good point. It's not just auto parts crossing the border. It's fresh fruit, vegetable, everything under the sun. Our economies are so linked that to try somehow or other to stop it, I mean, it would have it's like throwing a big roadblock in front of a speeding train. You're going to have cars crashed all the way down the track. I'm talking about Shields here. Sorry, I got a little carried away with my train. Folks, if you're concerned about money, if you're concerned about dealing local, then at least give Shields a chance. Shields.ca, a wonderful website there, no matter what it is, whether it's furniture, appliances, electronics, Shields has got them. Huge warehouse. And by the way, they got a great little butcher shop too. Only local. You're talking about local? If you want local meat, you want to support local farmers, then Shields, the little butcher shop in Pakenham, has got it great stuff. Only local beef, local pork, local poultry. Make some great sausages there too, and some great chili. Shields.ca. Go ahead, John, please.
I'm not sure the train analogy is applicable anymore since the LRT, but I digress. Anyway, Shane says, my prediction, Biden will lift the mandates on the U.S. side, which will force JT's hand to remove them here. Todd says, well, Lowell, if USA can make them, so can Canada. Build the factories. We have the people to work in them.
Yeah, but wait a minute, hold it. There's 300 and some odd million people in the United States. There's about 36 million people here. So if we can't sell our products to the United States, folk, we're screwed, blued, hued, and tattooed. Go ahead.
Auto parts are being flown into Canada for business here in Ottawa. This has been going on for a while now, says Kathy. Terry says, every time Rosie Barton lies, she gets another freckle. Thanks, Terry. Here's a text, 613-413-2217. Lowell, stop yelling at us. Yell at Mr. Trudeau instead. Doug Ford, yes. If he would open Ontario, we'd see an immediate cooling off of the entire situation. That is Bruce. Another person says...
Go ahead. My understanding is we're going to see an opening of Ontario in the next 2 or 3 days. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that yesterday, and I thought, okay, the Premier's speaking today. Here we go. Nope.
And for someone to say, stop yelling at us, yell at Trudeau, you don't think I've been yelling? What the hell have I been doing if I haven't been yelling at Trudeau?
Yeah, I would go back and I would listen to the Lowell Green podcast. There's about 291 episodes of Lowell yelling at Trudeau. LowellGreen.com. They're all there for you. Lowell, so if what you say is true, then why didn't Doug Ford begin this morning's briefing with, because Justin Trudeau failed to act, I regret that I must invoke the following?
Because that's not relevant. Right now, this how he says it, the fact of the matter is it's got to be done, that the bridges have got to be opened, okay? Simple as that.
I also applaud not pooping on
but you see, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter whether Doug Ford did the right thing or not. In the minds of some people, well, sure, he did the right thing, but he didn't say it the right way. Or, I mean, come on, folks. Give us a break, okay? Go ahead, please.
Which is exactly what you're saying about the United States versus Canada. I mean, Canada's not going to do it. To hell with you. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Here we go.
Yeah.
Barbara says, agree with you, Lowell. RE, the jurisdiction. Had Trudeau simply said anything to the truckers, this situation would be totally different. Yes, it's Ford's responsibility for the mandates in Ontario. Trudeau stoked this fire from the beginning, and this is the reason this protest has blown into an all-out protest against Trudeau. Ford is not the one held to account. An email from Lisa. The address is lowell@blasttheradio.com. Lowell, the thing to remember is that a lot of those protest organizations and demonstrators that cause trouble like this are nothing more than warmongers. I suspect some of the supporters want the federal government to implement the War Measures Act and suspend their civil rights. Then they can say, see, I told you, we live in a dictatorship.
Wait a minute. The War Measures Act? Oh, my goodness. Okay, go ahead.
Listen, everybody's a legal expert. I don't know if you know that. Facebook hands out law degrees daily, Lowell. I don't know if you know that.
I just want to go back over the responsibility. Now, last night I'm listening to, I guess it was CTV Power with Evan Solomon, right?
That would be CTV.
And CTV. So he's got 2 or 3 experts on, including one guy from the auto industry. And guess who he is blaming for the blockade? He's blaming Pierre Poilievre. Not one in all of this time that they're talking about. Honest to God.
How?
Because he says, well, Pierre Poilievre got up there and said that he wants freedom. And this apparently is what prompted. I mean, it is so outrageous what's happening. And not only that, now apparently Doug Ford this past weekend was up at the cottage, okay, taking a couple of days off. And he should have, somehow or other, he should have been doing something here in Ottawa. What could Doug Ford do here in Ottawa? This is a local police problem and a local city council problem. City council could have passed bylaws increasing the fines as much as they wanted. The police should have applied the law. And as a matter of fact, most of the local media agrees with that the responsibility here in Ottawa rests, well, with Trudeau, but primarily with the police and the mayor. But somehow or other, this has now become Doug Ford's problem as well. This is so ridiculous. Put your political ideology away and deal with the facts. If you don't think Doug Ford should have declared in a state of emergency, then what do you think Doug Ford should do? allow the blockades to continue because the prime minister is going to allow it. So what should Doug Ford have done? And I repeat, and interestingly enough, nobody has responded to this. If you support the truckers and you're mad at Doug Ford, then I ask you that, and it's a fair question. Are you prepared to lose your job? Because if the blockade continues, a lot of your neighbors, friends, relatives, fellow citizens are going to lose their jobs. Go ahead, John.
I have not seen one person respond to that question. Are you
But
prepared
it's a
to
valid
lose your
question.
job?
Okay?
It is,
It's
and I'm
all
waiting.
very well. The next guy, that my neighbor, he's going to lose his job. Well, are you prepared to lose yours? Because you know what? You may not realize it. You may not be working in the auto industry, but without even perhaps realizing it, you may be working in an industry or a job that relies upon the auto industry. I think most people understand what I'm saying here. Go
It's
ahead.
all connected. We're all connected. Satan's Playmate is the first person to respond. She says, I already lost my job. Shane says, Ottawa is in Ontario. Doug Ford is always boasting that he's on the phone with people, but he chose to go snowmobiling instead of talking with them on the SB Hill. I don't know what's the SB Hill.
What could Doug Ford do here in Ottawa? This is a responsibility of the Prime Minister, the local police, and the City Council. Go ahead, please.
Dean says, not willing to lose my job or see other people lose theirs. Michelle, who lives in Windsor, says it would absolutely bankrupt her city. Vaccine injured, unable to get boosters, says Satan's Playmate. We should end the mandates in Ontario immediately. Let adults make their own choices. Over 90% vaccinated. End the restrictions. Simple, says Adam. No one has lost.
Can I just point out something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that Doug Ford can end the mandates as it applies to restaurants. Doug Ford can't end the mandate that started all of this. He cannot change the mandate as it applies to the border. I mean, people have got to understand what the law is. The border is a federal responsibility. It is Justin Trudeau's. Doug Ford cannot order that the mandate concerning vaccinations at the border be stopped. Only Trudeau can do that. Please, okay? I sometimes the lack of knowledge of people just drives me absolutely bonkers. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been fighting that too, and we actually got a comment from Sam a little earlier on who says this has been an incredible civics lesson for so many. It really has. You got to figure out who controls what at what level of government before you can start laying.
The federal government, the mandates of the federal government apply to federal employees. Doug Ford can't affect that. They apply to border restrictions, vaccination, federal. They apply to mandates concerning travel in airlines, travel in trains, and a number of other aspects. But it's the border that's the problem, and that's federal. Federal, FEDERAL, federal. JUSTIN. Go ahead, please.
Adam says, yes, Trudeau ends the border mandates. Ford ends Ontario mandates. I get the difference, Lowell.
Good.
Steve says, sadly, Justin does not have the intestinal fortitude as his father. Here's a text at 613-413-2217. This person says, my job. How about Ford will soon lose his job? Lose, Loose, his job. He fell for Trudeau's gambit. Let me see. Brenda says, how many have lost their job for not getting vaccinated? Not Ford's fault. It lands on Trudeau. Craig says, no one has lost their job. Some hours have been reduced, but not one job.
Where?
I'm assuming he's talking about in the auto industry.
Yeah, well, and actually, there have been some plant shutdowns, and particularly in the United States, Michigan. Michigan is beside itself on this. Go ahead.
Trudeau needs to listen to the people. LISTEN, says Melissa. Chrissy, who's in Hamilton right now, she says people losing their jobs just to start, losing homes, bankruptcies, just more problems. This is all so sad. Kim says, wait and see the laws the Liberals pass after this mess. Chine Canada, says Kim. Patricia, just as we learned all about the U.S. politics during the last election, we need to learn about Canada. Here's another text. Ford should never have accepted responsibility for a federal border crossing. That is Trudeau's problem.
He's not. Please, what he has done is grant special powers through the emergency legislation, special powers to Ontario police, okay? Not the border guards, Ontario police. That's what he's done. Go ahead, please.
Eileen says sometimes I wonder if it's knowledge or are they just protecting Trudeau and blaming everyone else. Here's a message from Chris. He says, I was laid off in October due to slow business. I work in auto parts.
Got to move on. Listen, thank you all, folks. I'll try and be less grumpy on Monday.
No, we like grumpy Lowell.
Well, it's just when I read so many comments that people who just simply don't understand what the law is.
I get that.
Or don't understand what the responsibilities are.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing because this makes it hard to run a democracy. If people don't understand who's in charge of what, it makes it hard to run a successful democracy.
No, you're right. I got into that with someone today. They were saying this is unconstitutional. It doesn't, our Constitution. Show me your law degree. And of course, they didn't like being called out on that. Anyway, I'm interrupting you, sir. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good weekend, folks. We'll be back Monday.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.